note to everybody else. Thank you.
We're all in this together, aren't we? Yeah. Yeah.
And I love you so much, but during the first...
Next. We really meant the woman in front of you.
During the first segment, I was just fine, and then I about fell asleep 2 or 3 times, and I thought it was me until someone...
It is you.
Someone else said they had the same problem.
Oh, it's them too.
But why can we be so tuned in, and then is it just we get overwhelmed, or what is it that causes that?
Or there's the acknowledgement of well-being. Sometimes you settle into the whole of who you are, into that natural place. There's a lot going on here that is not just verbally transmitted. There's an energy stream that is flowing, and Esther's catching it and describing it as best as she can with the words that are possible to speak in a period of time. But there is a lot more happening here than just a verbal transmission from Esther's mouth to your ears.
Sometimes it feels like you're drinking out of a fire hose when it comes so much.
And yet, if it were really a fire hose that you weren't ready for, your response wouldn't be one of relaxation into well-being. You'd be more on guard or more aware or trying harder. So it's a good sign when you are relaxed into it, when it feels familiar, when it feels like that which you already understand and know, when it feels like the basis of your environment or your nest is just right. We don't take it as any disrespect. We take it as the preparation of your beingness for the conversation that we're having. And even if you don't hear it with your ears, you're still getting it.
We have a discussion group back home, and somebody asked if I would ask you, what is the purpose of prayer? The actual question is, how do they respond when somebody says, oh, I'll pray for you, thinking that maybe we're off track or something. But does prayer fit into the
Just say thank you. When someone says they'll pray for you, just say thank you. But know that it is not their work to do. Here's what we mean. Don't get shook up over that. Here's what we mean by that. Do you acknowledge that you are all extensions of source energy? And do you acknowledge that everyone has an inner being? And that everyone's inner being is focused upon them? Oh. And so your prayer might make them more conducive to what their inner being is already doing. But if their inner being is offering them all of this, and they've got a shield up and they're not letting it in, then there's really not much that they think that your prayer might do. You see what we're getting at? Everyone has direct access to source energy. They don't need someone else acting as their advocate. However, isn't it a nice thing when you're tuned in, tapped in, turned on, and holding someone as your object of attention? And that is the true value of alignment. And prayer is just a verbal way of expressing that it's going on. If we were standing in your physical shoes and we were personally approaching the subject of prayer, our prayers would not be those of asking for help, because in the very moment of asking for help, you're focused upon the problem for which you need help, which means you're not allowing the answer to the problem. So the very prayer itself is a blocking mechanism for the very thing that you're asking for, because you're focused upon the problem. That's why it's so beautiful what you said about you're sitting there in acceptance of. In other words, so much so that you're actually falling asleep in the energy of the well-being that is flowing to you. That's a nice state of being. If we were praying, it would every single time be a prayer of appreciation, a prayer of thanksgiving. Because when you're offering that prayer, now you're in alignment with all of that. And under those conditions, well-being has to flow, has to be let in by you. It's always flowing, has to be allowed by you.
You said one time, and I can't remember the exact words, but you compared the act of appreciation to love.
They're so close to the same vibration.
In my younger days, I always had trouble. Is this really love? What does it feel like? How do I know? I could never identify it. But you, by using the word appreciation, cleared all of that up. It just became so clear and so easy. All you have to do is appreciate, and that's what it is.
Let's talk about those two words for just a moment. Everything you said, we agree with. Let's talk about those two words. So, appreciation, we think, is a better choice for humans to focus upon because the word love has become so convoluted. Starts with your mother shouting at you, "Don't you know I love you?" When there's no love present right then. And so you kind of get mixed up. You're hearing a word, but you're feeling something quite different than the word implies. And so we're not kidding about that. In other words, there's a lot of misunderstanding about that. Appreciation, that hasn't happened with quite so much. Usually someone doesn't say, "I appreciate you," unless they do. Could happen, but usually they mean what they're saying when they use that word. So it's just a clearer, cleaner word. There's less resistance in that word. But let's talk about appreciation, just the word as you mean it in your languages around the world. It means an adding unto, a becoming more of. And there isn't anything that is more in keeping with what we teach than you standing in a moment where you allow more of who you really are to be, because you will never reach the limits of that which you are, because this glorious environment in which you stand, which helps you to know what you don't want and therefore ask for more, is the very basis of the appreciation factor, of the more factor, of the becoming factor, of the expanding factor. But when you are in that vibration of looking for something that feels good, that's when the true realization or allowing of your expansion happens. Don't you think that's all perfect vocabulary?
Mm-hmm.
We do. Yeah. Enough?
I have one more question. It's sort of related. You've described the group of entities that's Abraham as having gathered together because of mutual interests in serving humanity.
Law of
or
attraction
whatever.
always does that.
And you've also...
And the only reason that we've told you any of that is because you've demanded putting us into some sort of a context that you can accept.
Well, I know we're trying to describe things that are not of this world with words that are of this world, yeah, which is...
We're really looking forward to the time that you speak of us, of how we make you feel. And you did that when you first sat down. I feel safe with you, Abraham. I feel sure of my well-being with you, Abraham. I feel all-knowing with you. In other words, that's what your first words said to us. You described us through vibration rather than through physical, see it, hear it, smell it, taste it, touch it, dimensional things.
One last question would be, what's the difference between the collective consciousness that you are and what we term God? Is there a difference?
No, there's no difference.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yep. Really good. What you might want to call God might be a larger collection of the microcosm that is us. You follow? We are not all that God is, but we are that which God is, as are you.
I'm really excited to be here, and this is my first time seeing you, and very excited about it. And you keep answering all my questions before I ask them.
Before they come out of your mouth,
Yes.
but not before you project them.
True.
The conversation is sort of irrelevant. So we will have a moment of silence now.
You've spoken today a lot about perception, and I've had this kind of thought that I've expressed to a lot of people over the time that I always thought we kind of live in a bit of a hologram that's just kind of there by what we're focused on. It's kind of I don't know.
What is a hologram?
Just something that we live in this kind of a fluid world that changes with our perceptions.
Well, that is certainly true.
Okay.
Is it your understanding of a hologram that what is apparent in one aspect of it is apparent in broader aspects of it?
Yes.
Sort of like the question that we were just answering about God.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very much so, actually. Yeah, that's
Let's have that moment of silence.
What's that?
Let's have that moment of silence, yeah.
That's that moment of silence. Thank you. And I just got to say, since I've been here, as soon as I've been listening to you speaking, I've just been in such a just state of bliss, of joy, and it's fantastic to be here.
What that means is, that means that there's not a vibrational variance between you and the energy that is us. And so the communication is whole and complete and therefore satisfying. It's what we wish for all of you. We wish that in the same way that you have found harmony with us, that you can also find harmony with the things that you desire, because we are standing there with the things that you desire.
Okay.
You get what we're talking about? So in the same way that you can find harmony with us, if you really allow it, you can find harmony with the things that you desire that we are knowing relative to you. And when there's no separation between you and what you want, then you're moving toward them, and that is where that ultimate satisfaction comes from. That's what we said earlier when we said all satisfaction comes only from this experience of desiring something and moving in the direction of it, you see. So
I'm not 100% sure if I quite grasp that.
well, then let's take another run at it, because we really want you to hear this. So you were non-physical energy, and then you came into this physical body flat. Then you're exploring contrast, which you intended to do, knowing what you don't want, knowing what you do want, sending off rockets of desire, and these rockets of desire are culminating in what we are calling your vibrational reality. Gave it a name, called it a vortex, wrote 2 books about it. Read it. So this vibrational reality is what you have become vibrationally. You may not have allowed yourself to translate it or perceive it through your physical senses entirely, so it hasn't manifested yet in a way that you can pronounce it or ensure it or where others can see it, but it is in the process of becoming, and it does exist. And so the point that we were making with you just now is that standing amidst all of the things that you've asked for, right in the middle of that vibrational reality, is us, is your inner being, is us knowing, which is beyond believing, in you allow